Hello, everybody, and welcome to Super Podcast Action Committee, episode 165. It is Halloween, and this hat is the best I'm doing as far as Halloween goes. If you
I
watch
took off my costume already, so.
Oh, what was your?
I had scrubs and a little hat made out of the same material and a face mask thing. So I guess a doctor of some sort. Oh, it was emergency services personnel, is what the insignia said. So.
One of my favorite costumes from years past is I went as a garbage bag. I took one of the big black hefty bags and cut armholes and then stapled a bunch of trash to it, like cereal boxes and a banana peel and things like that. And funny idea for the first hour, and then it started to smell really bad.
Nice. And my favorite costume ever is, I forget how old I was. I think I was like 17 or 18. I don't know. But I had these, I don't know if you remember the Billy Bob teeth, where they actually had the stuff that you put inside them. And they were like made by dentists who made dentures and stuff. So really good quality stuff. And I had ones that were vampire teeth. And so I was like, I've had these vampire teeth for like nearly a year because I bought them at a gas station or something. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a vampire, but I don't want to go as just, your typical Dracula or something. So I looked all over the place to find the right clothes. And it's like, okay, I've got steel-toed work boots, those, black ones. These will work. And then I had black slacks and I had a British flat cap. And then I was like, okay, but I need a shirt. I don't have a good shirt. And I went to all kinds of, secondhand stores looking for a shirt that would work and couldn't find anything. And then some relative of ours gave us like a bag of clothes. And I was going through them and I pull out the perfect shirt. It was a girl's Western shirt, like a cowgirl shirt, but it was black and it had like silver edgings and it like 3/4 sleeves, and I was like, this is perfect. And so I put that on, and I had pulled out the I only buttoned it up like halfway, and I pulled out the collar and the buttons out into like big lapels and pinned them down so they would stay, and it was really cool. And I had this old spiked skull toy that I carried around with me too. But yeah, it was just awesome. I wish I had a picture of this thing, but I don't. I'm sad, but it was the coolest costume ever.
One time, my sister and I went as a chain gang. So we were literally tied to each other, and I think Mom liked the idea because I couldn't ditch my sister. It made sure that we stayed together because we were literally chained at the ankle. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. Although Halloween trick-or-treating specifically got more and more difficult for me as I got older, because neighbors were less inclined to facilitate such a deep-voiced gentleman with candy. You go up trick or treat, and they're like, "Get out of here!" But I'm only 15. It's not that old. Candy. How is Santa's? Did the time change in the U.S.? I have no idea when that is.
Yeah, it changes tonight.
Oh, does it? I'm glad someone.
2 o'clock, it goes back an hour. So.
Okay, I'm glad someone pointed that out because I have to work in the morning, and I would have been
showed up late.
Yeah, so thanks for pointing that out because I had no earthly idea. I hate time changes. Most of my life I lived in. It's still the better part of my life. We're approaching half, but I grew up in Phoenix, so Arizona, and Arizona doesn't do the time. It's one of the few places that does not do the time change thing. And you know what the drawbacks of that are? There are none.
Exactly. When I lived in Arizona, it was the best thing in the world. I just absolutely love not having to change the time, and yeah, if I ever get elected to office, I'm going. I'm considering running for Oklahoma House or legislature again this year, but I don't know if it'll actually happen, but I'm considering it. But if I do, that's going to be one of the bills I introduce if I'm elected, is to make Oklahoma a state that doesn't do daylight savings time or saving time. I don't know why there's no S, but, but yeah, because I hate it.
So it's daylight saving, not daylight savings.
Yeah, it's daylight saving time.
Huh. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
So let's see. Earlier today, I played Obscure: The Aftermath, a well-titled game because apparently no one's heard of it. And it was interesting because I turned it on. Like, it's a game I got for the Wii back whenever the heck it came out, because it's a horror game. It's basically your Friday the 13th supernatural slasher type movie that stars a bunch of kids in school, and it's like Maniac Mansion in the way it stars a bunch of characters with different skill sets, and you have to switch between the different characters to unlock doors and gather items and fight monsters and things like that. It's not a bad game. It's just got really crappy Wii waggle controls.
Yeah.
As I was telling Zachary before we started, the camera is tied to the pointer. So if you want to turn to the left, you kind of have to point to the left side of the screen, and it'll rotate. Point to the right, and it'll rotate to the right. The problem is that it's motion controls with the fighting too. So you hold down a button, and then you start swinging the remote around to swing your hockey stick or golf club or bat or whatever you have, which is fine, except now the camera's doing this too, and it makes it really hard to aim at creatures that fly. So if you can get over that hurdle, it's actually kind of a charming game because it's knowingly goofy in its stereotypes. The jock, the science nerd, the cheerleader, the hacker, those archetypal characters. Not a bad game, but the controls are pretty frustrating. Play it on the probably much better to play it on the PS2. But
Probably.
so next week, of course, is the full Extra Life 24-hour marathon. So I'll be doing that. I've raised $106 so far for Rady Children's Hospital, hoping to pick up a few more pledges this week. If you'd like to make a pledge, just go over to extralife.org, extra-life.org, type in my name and make a donation. The monies go to Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego, tax deductible. All monies go to helping hospitalized kids. And then watch me on Twitch next Saturday as I get loopy as the hours drag on. It gets really hard about 3, 4 in the morning. That's the block from about 3 or 4 a.m. to about 7 or 8 a.m. That's the really hard part. Once you get past 8 o'clock in the morning or so, your brain just is like, all right, fine, we're up. And you just kind of power through the rest of it. At least that's been my experience in years past. So
yeah.
Next week on the stream, the marathon, I'm going to play a game that I've actually wanted to try for a long time, and I don't have it in reach. It's called Sakura Wars, which is kind of a dating sim / robot fighty game. So you are on a team with like 5 or 6 other females, and the better your relationship with all of them, the better you guys fight together when you get in your big Voltron robots or whatever they are. So between robot punchy stuffs or robot shooty stuffs, I don't know, you have to, I guess, date all the characters and give them flowers or go through the multiple choice dialogue things to make them happy so that your attacks are more effective when you're fighting with giant robots. Sounds great. Nice. So I'm actually looking forward to that one. Cool. I had to buy a new nunchuck. I tried Obscure last night just to refamiliarize myself with the controls, and I was getting the connection between the Wii remote and the nunchuck was just not there anymore. And I tried it with different remotes and I was getting the same thing. So I'm like, all right, time to buy a new nunchuck. So I've spent $50 on the charity stream so far on a video game and a nunchuck. So, but that's
Awesome.
okay. It's fun, and I hear really great things about Rady Children's, the Children's Miracle Network hospital I'm playing for. I don't have kids, and I didn't live here when I grew up, so I've never used the service, but I know people who have, and they speak very highly of it. I have gone over there and sung for the kids before, though, and that's always fun. It seems like a nice facility, but I've never used it myself. But I hear good things. So, you been playing anything this week?
This week I finished Penumbra Overture. This is part 1 of a 3-part game, which kind of sucks, but I finally beat it today, which is nice. And that's it's not as scary as people make it out to be. I don't know. It's like
you never are.
Yeah, well, it's when you first load up the game, it's like, okay, make sure you turn off all the lights and you put your headphones on, and I'm like, okay, and really, it's not scary. There's definitely some intense segments in the game. Like there's this one scene where you're guided to this series of tunnels. And then all of a sudden you're constantly trying to dodge, like you start going through this thing, and then giant spiders start attacking you. And so basically it turns into a race to get through this tunnel system without getting killed by these giant spiders. And it's like anytime you pause to try to defend yourself or whatever, you basically lose because more spiders show up. So really all you really can do is just run through and get it. And so it takes a few tries, because you're going to make mistakes the first couple of times going through, but once you figure out where to go and what to do, it makes it easy. But yeah, there's a lot of segments in the game like that, but for the most part, it's just it's just exploration and figuring out puzzles. And so it's a very atmospheric game, but yeah, just not really scary at all. But I am looking forward to playing part 2 and 3. I do want to finish this because it's very entertaining story, and even though there's not really any other character, so to speak, other than this one guy that communicates with you over a walkie-talkie that you find. His name is Red, and he kind of gives you hints and clues, throughout the game. And then you finally meet him at the end, which is kind of an interesting meeting. I'm not going to spoil that for you guys, but it's definitely worth it. I think if you want to get a good game, I think this one's pretty good, and I'll have to let you know how the other two of them go. I just don't know when I'm actually going to finish them, because it took me 2 weeks to finish this one. But overall, it was like maybe 5 hours of gameplay, maybe 6. I don't know. It doesn't keep track of how many hours I played. So, 5 or 6, I think, is how long it took me to beat it. So, but other than that, I upgraded my iPhone's operating system, so I was actually able to download Fallout Shelter and started playing that. I only played it for like 30 minutes, but it's very nice. It's just a simple community building game. You just build your vault out and try to maximize the efficiency of it, and as you build your population. So haven't gotten too far into it. So it's definitely a game worth downloading. It's absolutely free, and if you can get it, it's quite fun.
Yeah, I heard Way Forward released an iOS and Android version of a WiiWare game from back in the day. I think it's called Lit, puzzle game. Way Forward, it definitely has some gorgeous looking art, although their games don't always do it for me, but they are pretty. And I have a work iPhone, but I think I have to create an Apple ID or something. And every
Oh,
time I think of checking out these free games that I keep hearing of, I'm like, okay, let's go to games. Enter or create an ID. I'm like, don't care. It's like I don't care enough to actually take the probably 20 seconds to make an Apple ID.
see, I had the luck of this phone was we had tried starting a business, and so this was the business cell phone, and then and so my wife had already created the Apple ID and everything, and so um, but I inherited the phone when I needed an upgrade, and well, yeah, it was kind of an interesting situation because we were on contract with this phone, but our other phones we needed to replace, and so we were just like, okay, so we transferred my number over onto this contract, and it all worked out. But so I got stuck with an iPhone that I don't actually want. And my wife got a Samsung Galaxy 3, which I would greatly prefer.
All right, so let us talk about this week's poll. So this week's poll discusses a week-long story that we've been talking about from South by Southwest, which is, I thought it was a music festival, but apparently they've expanded and now it's like Comic-Con isn't just about comics, it's kind of media. South by Southwest seems to be going in the same direction if it's not already there.
Well, yeah, they do movies, music, and I think they even have game developers show up, like indie game developers. So
yeah. So anyway, the next South by Southwest is next March, I believe, and or May, March or May, one of the M months, and so they're scheduling their the various panels that they're going to have there. So panels on how to make pumpkin pie or whatever. So back in August, I think it was, you submit your idea for a panel, and I think part of it is people voting on it, and part of it is a committee voting on it, and part of it is something else, so that they can get all this stuff done well in advance. So one of the panels is called Level Up, and it's about online harassment and the various forms it takes and what we can do about it, and different ways of addressing it for platforms like Twitter and Facebook and other social media things. And this one would have been hosted by Carolyn Cinders, who, if you remember the Gamergate spot I was on in the Huffington Post a couple months ago, she was on the segment I was on. Also, Randy Harper, whose name you may remember from the one of the auto blockers. It's not called the Gamergate auto blocker. It's called something else, but everyone calls it the Gamergate auto blocker.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah. So this panel happened. So this panel was selected, and it was a go. Apparently late to the party was a Gamergate in all but name panel called Save Point. And this would have hosted two people I've never heard of, Mercedes Carrera, who I actually met at a party a month ago, and Lynn Walsh, who is an SPJ journalist who was at Airplay in August. So they would have spoken about ethics in games journalism, gaming community, a lot of popular Gamergate topics. And you may ask, since we're here, why was it not just called Gamergate, the panel? Well, the organizers behind the panel said, if we call it Gamergate, it's definitely not going to go through, and we missed the deadline as it is. So let's just call it Save Point, a discussion of game culture, or something like that. And they from what I hear, they were after the submission period was over, but they got accepted anyway. So, well, good on them. I'm hearing a lot of fun conspiracy theories. It's like, someone slept with someone, or someone paid someone off, or someone knows someone who, some weird stuff. Because why this never happens. So anyway, two panels, Gamergate panel and online harassment panel, and you know there's going to be fun Twitter arguments about that, and there are. So,
Yep.
according to South by Southwest, they received, in addition to people bickering on Twitter, they apparently received specific threats of on-site violence. I'm assuming what that means is if these panels go on, I'm going to come and light everything on fire, or shoot things, or explode a bomb, or something like that. None of the threats were actually specified. South by Southwest never detailed the threats, never said which panel they were threatening, if it was both, if it was one or the other. We don't know. All we've heard is it's numerous threats of on-site violence. So, did South by Southwest up security? Nope, they canceled both panels, and now everybody hates South by Southwest, and I mean everybody.
Yeah, it's like Vox and
BuzzFeed. Both,
BuzzFeed, that's the other one.
Both issued press releases saying we will pull out of we're not even going to go if you don't reinstate these panels. Two politicians, Wendy Davis and Catherine Clark, spoke out, had open letters, or openly spoke out against South by Southwest's decision. The American Civil Liberties Union spoke out against this, and Gamergate and not Gamergate alike spoke out against this. So the poll this week asked, should the panels be reinstated? And we had 109 people vote. 6 people said no. 6 people said yes, but only the Save Point panel, which is the Gamergate panel. 21 people said yes, but only the Level Up, the online harassment panel. And 76 people said yes, both of them. So the majority of the people seem to think that at least one or more should definitely be reinstated, and most people think both should be reinstated. And South by Southwest yesterday or the day before issued another statement saying, okay, we hear you. Obviously was not the best decision. So instead, we are going to host, during the South by Southwest festival, which is several days long, on, I think, the Saturday, they're going to host an all-day online harassment seminar, forget what they're calling it.
They call it a summit.
Summit, yes. And all of the Level Up people are invited, all of the Save Point people are invited, and a whole slew of other people, including Wendy Davis and Catherine Clark, are invited. Off the top of my head, I remember Brianna Wu was in there. Several names you'd recognize. So
I'm looking for names that I recognize.
Yeah, so it's not. It's unclear if the panels themselves have been reinstated, but they did say they are working with all of the panelists to make sure that they have appropriate representation at the summit, even if the panels themselves do not go forth as they were originally going to. So, hey, we get a whole summit on online harassment out of it. That's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. And they did, as from what I understand, they did reach out to all the participants of both of the canceled panels and invited them back.
Yes.
But again, we're not sure if the actual panels themselves are going to be appearing or if they're just invited to participate in this summit.
Now, from what I've heard, the Save Point, the Gamergate panel, last I heard, they were going to organize and fund and host the panel themselves, not necessarily at South by Southwest, but in the bar across the street during the show. So they said that's going to happen one way or another, even on their own dime. I talked to Carolyn Cinders, and she said they haven't really thought much about organizing and hosting the panel themselves, because they've had a lot of interest from other venues to bring their panel elsewhere. So while Carolyn Cinders and Randy Harper and the other folks on that panel may still have involvement at South by Southwest, the panel itself may move to another venue. Don't know yet. All that stuff is still in the works. Last I spoke to Carolyn. So.
Yeah. Yeah, this move by South by Southwest, since I heard it, since they announced it, since I started reading about the panels being canceled, it just boggles my mind why they would do this. It's like, here's a panel about online harassment and how to deal with online harassment. Oh no, people are harassing us online about this. We should cancel it. It's like, what? No, that's the exact opposite of the point of this panel.
Yeah, that's tone deaf to the extreme.
Yeah, yeah. And apparently, South by Southwest, they're like, in their statement says, earlier this week, we made a mistake. By canceling 2 sessions, we sent an unintended message that South by Southwest not only tolerates online harassment, but condones it. And for that, we are truly sorry. And they're exactly right. That's the message they sent. They and the ACLU, agrees, said, far from controlling its hecklers, South by Southwest has succumbed to a heckler's veto. And that's basically what everybody was saying, was that South by Southwest, gives in to hecklers, gives in to people who don't want other people to speak, and nobody wants that message going across. And
I do appreciate that South by Southwest not only said, we made a bad call, we're going to do what we can to fix it, and not only did that, which is rare in and of itself, but actually acknowledged all of the flack that they got, which is nice here. I don't have the statement in front of me, but they do actually acknowledge the fact that everyone called them on this. It wasn't just some epiphany it had itself. It said, yeah, okay, yeah, we heard you, and we're wrong. So Laxter says, I don't think canceling it condones harassment. It recognizes that online harassment can potentially lead to actual physical threats and actions. True, but it also teaches people that all you have to do is send in a threat to silence people you don't want talking. And that's something you really don't want to do.
No, not at all.
Although I do think it's prudent to up security. I do think it's proper to announce that threats have been made, so anyone who is not comfortable attending or speaking can make their own choice. But yeah, that's a horrible precedent to start. That if you're the kind of jerk who wants to silence somebody, all you have to do is send in a threat, and that panel or that speaker or whatever will be gone. It can't be that easy. So,
no, and it shouldn't be. And we definitely want to avoid these kind of situations, and there I go saying, again. I caught myself too late there, but we had a similar situation with the SPJ Airplay event, where they ended up having to evacuate the building because the threats just got too serious to ignore, and they tried ignoring them. They tried for the vast majority of the day, and then finally, I guess, security and possibly the police said, no, you've got to evacuate now. And
I think what happened was the fact that no one was they didn't have security during the lunch break or something, and couldn't sweep it for the second panel. I don't remember, something like that, but. And there were like 6 to 11 sources differed bomb threats. So there were definitely multiple. No idea how many, but yeah. Shame on that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's not like it's not don't be safe, throw caution to the wind, don't take anything seriously. No, you have to take this stuff seriously. But I don't think you can't let the terrorists win. You can't just fold your cards every time a threat is made.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, nothing is ever going to get done. You can't give the bad guys that much power.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of governments and they have policies not to pay terrorists. If a terrorist says, you're going to give me this money or I'm going to blow you up or kill someone or whatever, they say that we don't give in to terrorist demands, and unfortunately that does have real consequences that people don't like, because terrorists will often go through with what they threaten if they don't get their way, and it sucks. But an event like this, I really doubt anybody's going to do anything that would be really threatening. But we do live in a society that is constantly in fear of mass killings, and we've had several events where this has happened, political rallies, movie theaters, schools, all have been areas where mass killings have taken place.
Oddly, though, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of these have ever happened at geek conventions, big pop culture conventions like Comic-Con and things like that.
Yeah, well, we've never had anything like that happen at a big event where lots of people are gathered in one convention. And so that's unknown territory, whether something like that would actually happen.
It's kind of interesting because you do have folks even to this day who are like, oh, you can't trust those gamers because they're all playing violent video games, and they're all, and those comic book kids, they read all the violent stuff, and the horror movie kids, and they consume all that violence. They're just ticking time bombs waiting to go off. And yet E3, Comic-Con, all these mass pop culture gatherings have never had a problem like that, and hopefully never do. You would think if there were any truth to that these would be hotbeds of it makes you wonder what the hell's wrong with schools, because this stuff happens at schools a lot. Schools and universities is I think the vast majority of where these things happen.
Yeah, and when you look at these things, a lot of times it's personal. With Virginia Tech, that's where Cho was going to school and he went on a shooting spree at his school. Then Sandy Hook, I don't believe the shooter had any connections with the elementary other than it was nearby his mother's home.
Yeah.
So that was where the personal connection came there. Let's see. The Aurora, Colorado shooting, the movie theater shooting. I don't really see a personal connection there, but at least not that I know of. But still, it was, he lived nearby. But yeah,
not often they go cross country or out of state to cause trouble. It's usually nearby.
No, they don't. And and I joked about this before. I went to back in March. I went to Super BitCon, which is a local gaming convention and expo, and I joked there because it was happening the same day as a gun show, which at the state fairgrounds here in Oklahoma City, and so you had one building full of guns and gun owners, and another building full of gamers. And I joked all day long. It's like eventually we're going to have a bloodbath, where both these groups are going to go to war with each other.
That's another point. Have any of these shootings ever happened at a gun show?
Nope. and you'd be a moron to go on a shooting spree at a gun show because
well, because the gun show is
everybody's armed to teeth.
Yeah, well, the gun show is also full of. It's where all the legal people are. It's where all the people who legally own guns and are licensed. Well, maybe not licensed, but educated to use them. Yeah. So stop doing bad things, bad people. There, I've solved all the world's problems.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
It's that simple.
You can't figure out how to make the chat full screen. Just hit the in Twitch. If you hit the little gear-looking icon, there's a pop out mode at bottom left, and that will bring it open in its own window, and then you can resize it from there. Also, anyone watching on YouTube, I don't know why the comments are disabled. I saw that in my settings. Comments are enabled, but if you try to leave a comment, they're disabled. At least they are for me. So if you want to chat with us and you're watching live, head over to GamePolitics.com. We have the Twitch chat embedded there. So YouTube, it's that damned YouTube Red thing. Okay, moving on. Batman Arkham Knight.
Arkham.
Batman Arkham Knight.
Arkham.
Yep. Returns to PC, and still doesn't work very well.
And it needs 12 gigs of RAM.
The patch. Yeah. The recommended specs are 12 gigs of RAM, which is not impossible, but that's fairly upper end.
Yes, I've got my laptop here. It's got a 1 gig video card in it, and then it used to have 8 gigs of RAM in it, and then I bought new RAM for my wife's laptop, and so I took her 2 1 gig sticks and stuck them in the 2 spare slots. So now I've got 10 gigs of RAM in there. So I'm 2 gigs away from being able to play Batman Arkham Knight on my laptop, but even then I doubt it would run because my video card is like 4 years old.
Or you could just play it on console. What's interesting is Batman Arkham Origins suffered a lot of the same PC problems. Of course, this was back before Steam refunds. And I remember WB at one point saying, no, you see, I think our time is better spent on DLC rather than actually fixing the bugs in the game. And I think they're using the same studio to make the PC port of Arkham Knight. And anyone feel free to correct me on that. But they've been a lot more accommodating as far as gifts and refunds. It came back, I think it was June the game came out, and then it was pulled off Steam and other digital distribution services weeks after that to be fixed. And it's had some interim patches. And it had its grand re-release a few days ago, and Eurocom's Digital Foundry said there's no difference between this re-release and the interim patch other than hooks for DLC. But the WB announced the game returning and said to make up for it, we're going to be giving away all of the games you probably already own. All of the Arkham games, Arkham City, Arkham.
And this actually, I don't own any of the Arkham games. I've never played them. And this is actually kind of tempting. But yeah, I'm with you there. But it is kind of tempting. Get 5 games for the price of. And I said, again, for the price of just this one, but I don't really want to deal with all the crap because really, when they released this thing, it's like, and we found out about the improvements. It's like WB said, "Hello, everybody. We heard your complaints, and we have finally made this game DLC compatible.
We fixed the game. Put more RAM in your computer. There's your fix." Matthew says that the game was yanked from the PC version was yanked days after, not weeks. All right. But it's back.
Yeah, it didn't take long to get pulled.
Yeah. So it's back now, but WB says, "We're very sorry that many of our customers continue to be unhappy with the PC version of Batman Arkham Knight. We worked hard to get the game to live up to your standard. I'm sorry, we worked hard to get the game up to live to the standard you deserve, but understand that many of you are still experiencing issues." That's probably not the best wording they could have used there.
No,
We worked hard to get it up to the standard you deserve. That almost sounds like they hold us in a lot of contempt, you know? They continue, "Until the end of 2015, we'll be offering a full refund on Batman Arkham Knight PC, regardless of how long you've played the product. You can also return the season pass along with the main game, but not separately. For those of you that hold on to the game, we're going to continue to address the issues that we can fix and talk to you about the issues that we cannot fix." I wonder if that's, well, we could add more DLC, but any of the performance issues. Okay, I'm just being a jerk now. Valve edited the post and says, "For users having trouble submitting a refund for the game, that issue has been resolved."
Yeah.
So
what do you think about the when they re-released the game, they recategorized all the existing reviews to pre-release reviews. What are your thoughts on that move?
I understand what they're doing, but that is misleading, probably intentionally so. I mean, it's a semantics thing, but I think because it just change the tag. I understand what they're doing, and I agree with what they're doing. They're saying, look, these reviews refer to the version that was broken, and they no longer apply. I think that's important, but saying that this was the, what did they say, pre-release?
I think it said pre-release. So
whatever
it's
it
either
was.
Pre-release or early access. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's not what it was. I tend to be pedantic, but I don't think this is over the line. That was not pre-release. It was broken. Now, if they changed the tag and said original release, or even if they wanted to flaunt it, buggy ass release, or June whatever 2015 release, or version 1.0, that would have been totally fine. I think trying to separate out all the, well, this game is crap and doesn't work at all, away from the new version that ostensibly does work is fine. But I agree that the labeling was wrong. That's not the label they should have used.
Yeah. Apple does a similar thing on the iOS, the iPhone and everything, where you can release a game and then you can do a new release where it's like, golly, I'm gonna kill myself with this.
Recognizing you have a problem is the first step to
yes, it is. But with Apple, you release your game, and then say 2 weeks later you release an update, and you can number the update like a lot of companies will do with their software. It's like version 1, version 1.2, or whatever. And Apple does make the distinction between reviews given to a game at different version numbers, and you can look at all those and see what how things have changed over the course of the game's life, and then you could just look at all reviews and not worry about which version they're from. But it's still kind of an interesting situation. Kind of makes things seem shady, because you could theoretically release a buggy and broken and terrible game and then release a quote new version of the game to hide all the bad reviews. You don't even have to update much of anything. You say, okay, this is a new version of the game, but all you did was change a few icons inside the game, and it's technically a new version, and all those old reviews are hidden.
True, but you also run the risk of getting the stigma attached to you that your initial release is buggy as crap and don't buy it. Ubisoft has that now. There are people that say, yeah, Assassin's Creed, love it, not buying it at launch because it's probably not going to work. Same thing with Battlefield,
Yeah.
and some of EA's games. That's not a stigma you want. So,
but it's a stigma that pretty much every AAA publisher has given themselves, because they do this on a freakishly frequently basis. Capcom, Ubisoft, EA, Activision, it doesn't matter who it is. They will always release crappy, buggy games and then do a day one patch that's 9 gigs. and it's terrible business model, but for some reason gamers haven't decided that enough was enough. And
I'm wondering about some gamers. Is there a significant number of gamers out there that have had trouble getting their these humongous million-seller games on launch day? Has that been a problem? It's like, oh, never again will I go to GameStop and not have the new Call of Duty. Never again I will pre-order everything. Has that really been a problem?
I don't know. I wouldn't think it's a problem.
I mean, if it's like really niche stuff from Japan, like a real limited 1,000 copy run of something that's from Japan, something like that, yeah, okay. But you don't need to pre-order Human Revolution. There's going to be enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, I better pre-order Final Fantasy VII Remake now. I make sure I get my copy. Come on.
Yeah, pre-ordering is a terrible idea. Stop doing it, people.
Yeah. And especially with digital downloads, kind of unlimited number of copies there, if you don't mind digital. And Matthew, yeah, I don't mean to imply that Ubisoft's stigma of releasing broken games is unearned. It's absolutely earned with stuff like Assassin's Creed Unity last year, and Syndicate a lot better this year. Still buggy in some cases, but it's, to be fair, these are really large, complicated games, and you're going to have some bugs in them. But oh man, Unity was. Ugh. So but back in the 90s, maybe this could have been an issue, but today, no, stop it, just stop. Bad gamers bad. All right, so moving on to more bad gamers bad, actually bad developers bad. Nintendo, this is the second week in a row. Remember everything I said last week about Fatal Frame? Yeah, that applies to Xenoblade Chronicles X. Stop that. Bad Nintendo, bad.
Yes.
I don't like admonishing you, Nintendo, because I'm a fanboy, but this is my hand, and you have forced it. So, last week we talked about Fatal Frame, which came out digital download only, which might not be a horrible thing, except it's friggin' huge, and the Wii U is friggin' small, so I have no room for it. But in the Japanese version, there are bonus costumes that put the lead characters in their undies, in their ill-fitting undies. They're actually really silly looking. And Nintendo said, not for Europe and America, no, and replaced them with actually really cool Samus and Zero Suit Samus and Zelda costumes. Yeah. But my argument is they should supplement the original costumes, not replace them, because I hate that. So, and it was also weird because it's an M-rated game, right? It's an M-rated horror game about murderous ghosts and suicide. I think we can handle cartoon characters in their underwear, even if you say they're 17 years old. But so I talked last week about, well, what about Xenoblade Chronicles X? That's rated teen, and there's a lot of skimpy outfits in that one. Well, according to someone who has the PAL version of the game, the European version of the game, at least 2 of Lynn's costumes have been changed. There were a couple skimpy bathing suit costumes that have been changed to shorts and a crop top. And This is not confirmed. These are like weirdly cropped screenshots that were posted on Twitter, and there's been a lot of, well, Nintendo said back at PAX in August that the American version would not be censored. No way, no how. So we don't really know yet, but since Nintendo just did this exact thing with Fatal Frame, it's likely that it's within the realm of believability that it would do this for Xenoblade Chronicles X 2, which is uncool, and don't do that. If you think that someone's going to have an issue with these particular costumes, give them options to avoid them. That's all you have to do. That's it. Yep. No need to remove them from the game wholesale or alter them, because then the only thing you accomplish is you piss off people like me. And you get real stubborn gamers who go, well, I ain't buying it now. Middle finger to censorship. So,
yeah, this is, again, I got to point out that Nintendo is the same company that had the uncensored version of BMX XXX. Sony was the one that censored that game. But I also remember fondly a game called Draken on the Super Nintendo as an RPG. Not a very good one, but still a lot of fun to play. I liked it. Once I figured out how to play it, I enjoyed playing it. It took me several times playing it to actually figure it out. But in that game, I remember you could take off the character's armor, and because you can change armor out, and it actually changed the avatars, and you could strip them down to their underwear, which is always, back in my teenage days, that was fun, to make an all-girl team of characters and then play half the game in their underwear until you actually had to put armor on them. Or
I played through as much as Knights of the Old Republic as I could in my underwear. And I laughed the entire way through. I was in my 30s. Last year.
Yeah. But yeah, this is just one of those things that just doesn't make sense. Nintendo's trying to appeal more towards core gamers with these titles, and but then they go and do moves that don't appeal to core gamers.
Yeah, it's not you need to have underwear to appeal to core gamers. No, what we're saying, don't let me put words in your mouth, but I think what is irritating core gamers is the censorship aspect, being told no. If you, my mom, I hear tell that when I was a very small child, mom could easily get me to burst into tears simply by telling me no. So I'd be sitting on the floor in my diaper, right next to the electrical outlet with a fork, and I'd get prepared to stick the fork right into the electrical outlet, and Mom would say, Andrew, no. And I'd go, yeah. So, yeah, gamers hate being told no. And when a company like Nintendo or anyone takes their game and says, Japan, there's the game for you, and it's an awesome game. Let us share the game with our European and North American friends. You can't handle it. This is not for you. No, you can't have that. You can't handle that. That pisses us off. Oh, exactly. We hate that. It's so insulting. Don't do that. We are mature. Very, very mature, and we will decide for ourselves whether we want our characters to run around in their underwear. Thank you very much. And what makes this particular instance so aggravating is it's not the character's default costume. The character's default costume is like knee-length black shorts and a white sleeveless shirt. There are... I don't have the game yet, but I would not be surprised if there are 100+ costumes for every character. And they range from the underwear-y swimsuit type of skimpy costumes to very casual-looking dress like jeans and sweaters to these really outlandish power armor, almost Sentai type of power armor things. So it's not like... you're playing Dead or Alive and all of the costumes have the characters' breasts hanging out. These are, it's like in Terra. One of the Elans, the wood nymph looking characters with the rabbit ears, only a third of their costumes are actually the underwear and short skirt variety. The rest of them are in pants. So it seems kind of odd to say, oh, we need to censor this stuff. It's like, well, don't put your character in that costume. I mean, if you really are bothered by it, don't play an Elin. Don't play, you know, there is something. Here's the difference. Because a lot of people say, well, what about Sarkeesian's observations of how women are depicted in media? She's giving a very broad observation of general trends. What I'm talking about is a specific instance. Specific instances are okay. No one's saying that you can't ever have characters in their underwear again. It's okay. It's totally okay to be in your underwear. You heard it. Tell your mom that Andrew says it's okay to be in your underwear. So,
Laxter has a good question here. Let's say the opposite scenario happened, where you had somebody dressed, in reasonable and modest outfit. And then the game got brought over to a new region, and that outfit was taken out, and a skimpy one was put in its place.
Same problem. Exact same problem.
Yeah, I agree. Because they are taking something away that was in the original version and replacing it with something that it wasn't. Wasn't originally there.
I mean, that's just as insulting, just in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you're not going to be happy unless she's naked, are you, you skeevy little perv? Now, if you want to add that costume in there, hey, great. And if I want to use it, I will. And if I don't, I won't. It's cool.
Yeah.
And if you're concerned about contributing to the general depiction of women in media, don't do it in the first place. But if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it. And damn it, own it. Yeah. Don't try to sweep it under the rug, because you're not going to. We're going to notice. We're going to find you out. It's going to irritate the hell out of us. So don't do that. Want characters in their underwear? It's okay. You can have characters in their underwear, but don't censor stuff. It's irritating.
Yeah, I agree. It's just it drives me nuts when we don't get stuff that we're promised or told we're going to get, and it's just as bad to have retail exclusive content for your games. Stop doing retailer exclusive content.
Yeah, that's not censorship, but we do hate it.
Yes.
Hal asks, I wonder if these decisions have anything to do with the new president. Nintendo new president? No. Nintendo, as I mentioned last week, Nintendo seems to kind of like throw darts at this. It just occasionally it will say, oh, we need to cover up Tharja's butt in this one particular piece of downloadable content, in this one specific piece of art in the downloadable content. It's like, what?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Nintendo's top leadership. This all has to do with Nintendo's regional leadership. Mm-hmm. It's the regional leaders that make these stupid decisions. And and like I said before, last week, Nintendo's regional leadership is the reason why the U.S. didn't get the normal size new 3DS and the interchangeable faceplates, because Nintendo of America said, no, gamers don't want normal size 3DSs; they just want the XLs. And U.S. gamers don't like interchangeable faceplates. They're happy with just the single color we offer them. No, we don't. I love getting these things. I don't love it because I don't actually own any of them, but I see the Lego face plates for the DS, where you could get Lego Star Wars or Lego Harry Potter or Lego Pirates of the Caribbean. These were actual clamshells that go over your DS, and then there's a stylus with a Lego figurine on top of it. Those things are cool, and if I ever actually had the money to get one, I would have. But yeah, I never had the money to buy one when I saw them.
Yeah.
Those things were cool. I love the idea of these interchangeable faceplates, but yeah, Nintendo of America doesn't think we like them.
Some of the decisions I don't get. It's going to be really interesting to see how Nintendo's next year with the NX and from there on out. Because
Yeah.
it sounds like, if you listen to the investors briefing from earlier this week, it sounds like Nintendo's like, okay, we know what's going on, we know what we have to do, hooah, let's do it. But that doesn't mean anything. You know, they could say, oh, we're going to have a cloud save so you can move stuff back and forth to different devices, and we're going to have a unified account system, and we're actually going to take smartphones seriously, and that's all great. But then you remember things like, oh, the virtual console, which is such an awesome idea that they go, virtual console, I'm bored now, and then they let it die on the vine. So it could happen with this too, but we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
Matthew says he thinks the NX will be late 2016. I do too.
It will be holiday 2016. At the earliest, you'll see it in August, but
in the summer,
most likely it'll be late September, middle October time frame. Probably October, I would say, would be.
They may keep it the November 18th ish.
Yeah.
Right before Black Friday. But I've some of you may be, oh, Andrew's changed his mind. Yeah, he's changed his mind. Months ago, like a year ago, I was saying 2016. Yeah, fall 2016 is very earliest, but probably not till 2017. Yeah, now I'm thinking, 2016 launch. I didn't feel it a year ago, but I'm feeling it now.
Yeah, so slightly off topic, but I saw this rumor early this week or last week. I can't remember which, but the rumor was that the Zelda U was actually just going to be a Twilight Princess HD remake.
Oh, that's interesting, because there's a lot of rumors going around with the HD remake of Twilight Princess, and oh man, Nintendo, you really want to piss people off? I mean, beyond censoring a few costumes in your video games, if you really want to make us hate you, announce Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD remake and say, yeah, that Zelda Wii U, that's Zelda Wii U. We will kill you! If you want all of Nintendo fandom to turn against you, then announce that Zelda Wii U is actually an HD remake of Twilight Princess.
If Nintendo thought they had a bad reaction to
the Metroid thing,
Metroid Federation
something,
or whatever it was,
Federation
if they thought they had a bad reaction to that,
oh, ain't seen nothing yet.
Multiply that by 1 million, and that's what an HD remake of Twilight Princess would get you instead of a real Zelda game. But yeah.
All right, let us move on to our last topic. And Zachary, I'm going to let you take the reins on this one. This is the Library of Congress and their DMCA exceptions. This was actually, this kind of surprised me, but this was our most trafficked story this week.
Really?
I was surprised by that. Yeah, and like by by a factor of 8 to 10 on Facebook too. This story had a ton of traction. It was weird. It's a great story, don't get me wrong, but I was just kind of surprised that people were that interested in it, and I'm actually very glad to hear that.
Yeah, me too, because this is one of the more political stories we've run recently. But to describe what's going on here is that in 1998, when Congress passed the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, they included a sectional law called the Anti-Circumvention Law, where basically the gist of the law is that if a company that depends on copyright puts DRM on their media, it is illegal to bypass that DRM. And that was it. And they got a lot of flack for it at the time, and they realized, okay, maybe that's a little too absolute. Because copyright itself has built into it fair use here in the US, where you can do stuff with copyrighted media that you buy that the company or the person that owns the copyright wouldn't normally approve. You have that codified in the law. And this anti-circumvention clause basically told everybody that fair use no longer applies if DRM is on it. And so they included a clause in there where every 3 years, the Library of Congress, this is the agency that handles all copyright areas, the actual application of copyright law. And every 3 years, they would get together, they would request comments and petitions from the public about what areas out there in the wild, or what scenarios would people think that copyright or DRM should be allowed to be bypassed in order to, appease fair use. And so every 3 years, organizations and people say, I want to be able to bypass DRM in these scenarios. And then Library of Congress, takes counter petitions, and then they go into their back room and they throw darts at a board and decide on what areas of copyright law you can bypass DRM, or what scenarios you can bypass DRM for. And this has been going on for 18 years, almost 15 years, I guess. And so they did it this year, and they're actually late this year too.
Yeah. To be clear, the stuff that we got approved 3 years ago is now no longer approved. We start from zero every time.
No,
right?
No, not necessarily. They have to reauthorize that. They have to reapprove it. And so if nobody comes up and saying, if nobody comes back and says, I want this to be reapproved, then they're highly likely to say, screw it, we're not going to let that go on. But
okay,
that
so not
happen.
necessarily.
Not necessarily, but it is possible for us to lose an exemption that we previously had.
Okay.
And that's one of the problems with this law, is that when an exemption is granted, it's not permanent. You can lose it, because they could receive a counter petition against an exemption saying, no, for the last 3 years we've had so many problems, people are doing so many illegal things now, and they're like, oh crap, well, let's take that away, which doesn't normally happen, which is fortunate. But I believe we have lost stuff in the past, quite a bit of stuff. But this year they did this. They started a year late, which is really annoying. But I believe the 3 years exemption starts when they actually approve it, not when they start the process, which is good. But this year we got a number of things. Jailbreaking phones came back. If you're jailbreaking your phone in order to switch carriers, that is still there. That was approved the last time, and they reauthorized it this year. For the first time, we got an exemption for bypassing DRM on movies, DVDs, and Blu-rays in order to use portions of those movies in educational situations. So like if you're a professor at college or high school, you can make copies of scenes of a movie in order to distribute that with your materials. But this one also has a really weird provision in there, is that it only applies to nonprofit educational institutions. So if you run a for-profit school, you can't do this. And so I see that one actually getting a legal challenge here in the next year, because there's a lot of for-profit schools that would love to be able to do this, but they legally can't. Right? Yeah, private schools. But on the video game front, we actually got two one really good exemption and then one somewhat good one. The really good one is that for games where the DRM servers have been shut down, we can now bypass the DRM in order to continue playing single player and multiplayer, local multiplayer.
Yeah.
And this one is for everybody, which is really nice. So if you bought a game and then the company that owns the game decides to shut down the servers, and you can't play the game because the DRM's trying to ping a server that's no longer there, you can crack that DRM. But the only problem with this one is that, well, the one of the major problems with this one is that you can't bypass the DRM in order to play online multiplayer. So you can't create your own. You're locked into only local player, local modes. And so yeah, everybody gets to do this. It came in from the EFF talking about getting this for museums and stuff so that they can actually display these games, but they also said this would also be good for actual game players. And the Library of Congress said, this makes sense, that if a gamer buys a game, they should be able to play it for as long as they own the game, not for as long as the company wants to support the DRM for the game.
Yeah.
And so this one's actually good. And hopefully it gets expanded in the future, because it would be nice to be able to bypass DRM for games that still have supported DRM, but I don't see that ever happening. But the other one that's not quite as good, but is still a step in the right direction, is that if a console has DRM on it and or requires a connection to a server in order to function, but the companies that created the console no longer support it, you can now crack those consoles in order for museums and nonprofit. Again, the nonprofit thing comes up, where a nonprofit organization that's trying to preserve video game history can bypass the DRM on these consoles in order to allow those consoles to be played at the museum or other place where the games are being displayed. But for us gamers, the problem here is that for us gamers, if we own a Wii or a PS3 or a 360, here in about 3 or 4 years, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo are going to stop supporting these consoles. But it's illegal for us to actually use those consoles afterwards, because we would have to bypass the DRM in order to play the games that we legally bought for these things. As long as those games require some kind of connection to a server in order to play, and as long as the consoles need connected. So like Xbox Live indie games, you wouldn't be able to play them because they require a connection to the Xbox Live servers in order to verify that you actually bought them. And if they shut down those servers, well, you're kind of screwed, because even though we have an exemption to break the DRM on a game, we don't have an exemption to break the DRM on the console. So with a console, we're stuck behind 2 walls of DRM, and since we can't break one of the walls, we're screwed. Yeah. So that's pretty. It's a step in the right direction. Hopefully they'll. The big hang up there is that the ESA has convinced the Library of Congress that any exemption on bypassing DRM on consoles just opens up the entire world to piracy. They say that that if they can bypass the DRM on a console, they're going to install all kinds of crap and download games and just fill their hard drives with millions of games that they pirated instead of legally bought.
Well, I ain't filling my Wii U hard drive with millions of games.
Yeah, but
Maybe
yeah, that's
2.
And so that's where we're at. Pile the big scare thing, and we aren't going to get it. Again, a request to to have an exemption for installing other operating systems or homebrew onto consoles was rejected, specifically because it opens up the console to piracy.
Which is already illegal, right?
Yeah, it's already illegal.
Okay.
It's yeah. But if you run a non-profit museum, you can crack consoles DRM. But if you run a video game store and you want to crack the DRM on a console so that you could actually sell that to customers so they can play games on it, no, you can't do that because that's illegal. It's illegal to actually give customers the product they want to buy. Yeah. So.
Well, maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe one day. One day we'll actually be able to convince Congress that the DMCA is one of the most broken and draconian laws on the books, and they'll just scrap it. But unfortunately, that won't happen for quite a while.
So here's an interesting thought: the Entertainment Software Association. What good is it? It does actually do some nice fundraisers. I mean, it's not for gamers, although you'd think what's good for the publisher would be what's good for the gamers is what's good for the publishers. But the ESA really only represents, 18 different publishers? Most of the major ones.
Something like that.
I think it's less than 20. Do you think the ESA, if they were just gone, do you think anyone would miss them? I mean, even from a publisher perspective.
From a publisher perspective, they might, because they like being able to rely on a single organization to do all their lobbying for them. But that's not to say that publishers are not above actually lobbying lobbying governments for certain things. Because
I know you'll do it, EA and Ubisoft, even though you're not in America.
Nintendo was actually when a few years back I went to DC with the ECA, the Entertainment Consumers Association, and I was speaking with a staffer of I think it was Representative Chavez from Utah, and he said that Nintendo was actually there one year talking about piracy, and they were showing the everybody on Capitol Hill the I forget what the R4 cartridges, the things that let you do homebrew and piracy and all that stuff.
Which are not sold here.
Yeah, which are not sold here, but they were showing those off to Congress and telling Congress, how evil these things were. And the staffer said he saw that and he was like, man, that's actually really cool and convenient. You turn your video game handheld into an all-purpose media device.
Nintendo,
that's really awesome.
Have you thought about making your own R4 cartridge and selling it?
Yeah, but
there seems to be a market for that, at least in Japan.
Yeah, but publishers are out there, and I think if the ESA went away, they would probably just hire a couple of Capitol Hill lawyers to do all their lobbying for them. Yeah, so but I don't really think anybody would miss the ESA.
Yeah, after these days, I don't think I would at all.
I wouldn't either.
Okay. So that is our show for this evening. Happy Halloween, everybody. And no trick-or-treaters. It's 8:30, it's dark. I've got a big bowl of candy. I guess I'll just eat all this myself. No, I'll just take.
Do you have a porch light that you can turn on?
No. Although it is, it's hard to describe without a. There's kind of a short hallway. So there's so there's a stairway going up one side to the second landing because there's an apartment above mine, an apartment above the one next to mine. My door is under that landing, and the hanging light that lights up this whole front area, these 4 doors, is over that way a bit. So back in the corner where my door is a little dim. It can actually make it kind of hard to find the key and the keyhole in my door. I do have a porch light for my
patio.
Yard patio, thank you.
Yeah.
But that's kind of pointless because it's around the corner from where my door is.
Yeah.
But anyway, let us promote our things and get out of here. Andrew Eisen here. Eisen is how you spell the last name, which is very important to know if you want to find all the cool stuff I do. On YouTube, just type in Andrew Eisen and you'll find my channel. I just finished 13 Days of Horror, which if you haven't seen, which looking at my view count, you have not. So what that was a for 13 days leading up to today, Halloween, I watched a new horror movie every day and chatted about it. And it's interesting because I have about 8,000 subscribers. 7,000? 7,000 subscribers. And those most of those videos have only 60 to 80 views. I guess that's just really not what my subscriber base is interested in seeing. But the few that do watch it really, because I got a lot of really nice feedback from the people who watched it. So and I had a lot of fun doing it. So, but 13 Days of Horror, it's me talking about horror movies. So check that out. Next week, at Andrew Eisen on Twitter and Andrew Eisen YouTube is the Facebook page. Next weekend is the big one. It's the Extra Life charity 24-hour gaming marathon. So I'll be streaming games on Twitch, my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Andrew Eisen for 24 hours from noon Pacific Standard Time on Saturday, November 7th to noon the following day. And this is to raise money for the Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. So go to extra-life.org/participants/Andrew Eisen, or just go to extralife.org, type in Andrew Eisen, you'll find the page. Make a donation, it's tax deductible. All the money goes into helping hospitalized kids. And then go to twitch.tv/Andrew Eisen next Saturday and watch me try not to fall asleep while playing a bunch of fun games. One of them will be Sakura Wars, that dating game / robot fighting game, and I'll probably be playing a few other things too. So I hope you'll all join me for that. Zachary, plug away.
All right. I don't have any cool nonprofit charity things going on. I don't have time to do things like that. But if you're interested in seeing what I do have time for, you can check out Easy Night on Twitter and my game development work, as slow as it is. You can follow that on divinenightgaming.com and DK_gaming on Twitter. And if you're interested in the Oklahoma game development scene, there's always lots of good projects coming out of this state. You can check out okgamedev.com and okgamedevs on Twitter. And if you're interested in random thoughts on the video game industry, there's randomtower.com. I actually published a more of an editorial style thing about the Library of Congress DMCA thing there. So if you're interested, you can check that out. And if you're interested in the not so serious part of the look at the games industry, check out rustyoutlook.com and Rusty Outlook on Twitter.
All right. You have been listening to Super Podcast Action Committee, episode 165, and we thank you for it. Send us email at superpackpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at superpackpodcast. Gosh, I hope we get RSS and iTunes up soon, because we've got one stumbling block that we're trying to get out of our way, and it's like trying to get an icon resized so that iTunes will accept it. It's just a weird issue. And like us on Facebook. Laxter says next weekend I'll be playing video games all day. Zachary, I'm a grown-up. I don't have time for that. So, all right. Take care, everyone. Have a happy Halloween, and we'll see you next week. Or actually, there won't be a Super Podcast Action Committee next weekend because I'll be busy playing video games all day. So we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Take care.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.